Hello everyone, my name is Zach, welcome back to my channel, I hope you're doing well today. This video is part of a collab that I was asked to become a part of by Cat Talks. She is a great friend of mine here. She has been a supporter of my channel since I uploaded my first video, so I'm very grateful to her for all her support and asking me to be involved. She's also asked all these lovely people to make their own video, so check their stuff out. The question that Kat asked to us for this collab is to talk about why we DNF books, when and why we do it. So I thought I'd go through my list of reasons and give some examples of each as to when and why I choose to DNF a book. So as I thought about it, I really have 4 categories of DNFs. Category number 1, it's just not the right time. This usually relates to soft DNFs, which are books I put down for the time being but plan to come back to. These are books that I can see myself liking, but at the time being, I'm just not getting into them. There's something wrong, and so I decided to put them down for now. I have 2 examples of this. The first one is The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis. This is one of C.S. Lewis's theology books where he talks about the concept of how can God exist in a world that has so much pain. And I went to read this right after I took my spring semester finals, and I was brain dead and just kind of intellectually spent. And I read the first chapter of this, and I wasn't retaining much of anything, and I realized there was no point in reading a theological argument book if I wasn't going to retain any of the information or arguments that C.S. Lewis made in the book, so I decided to put it down, and I'm going to come back to it at some point. The other example I have is Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. As you can see, this book is pretty big, and at the time that I picked it up and read the first part, I just didn't want to commit all the time to this book when I had other books that were shorter that I wanted to get to first, so I decided to put this down. I did really like the first part. I think it's going to be a very interesting story when I get around to reading the whole thing. So, again, it just wasn't the right time. It was too long and just too much going on in my life to commit to a book of this thickness, so I just DNF'd it at that time. Category 2, too much bone, not enough meat. This is a cute little thing I like to have for any book that focuses too much on world building and doesn't give me enough plot and or characters to make me feel satisfied. The only example of this that comes to mind is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. When I tried to read this book, I could see the technical skill that this book had. There was a lot of great world building and a lot of great things were thought out. But the story was agonizingly slow in my opinion. And it was also kind of a really sad book, which I can handle sad books and I can handle slow books, but when you have a sad, slow book that is incredibly long, it just wasn't doing it for me. When you read the back of the book, the kind of blurb, it's a excerpt from the book in which Kvothe, the main character, talks about all these great things he did and why he's not to be messed with and why he's this kind of legendary figure. But when you read this book, it turns out to be part of a trilogy, which I didn't know going in, and it's just a lot of world building. It is a lot of minuscule everyday details, and it felt like there was so much world building and setup that I wasn't getting a story out of it. I was just kind of like listening to the diary of some guy and then the world building notes of an author. So for that reason, I put it down because I just wasn't really interested. Category 3, something gets under my craw. This one is a little harder to explain because it's kind of a I'll know it when I see it kind of deal, but basically it's just something in the book puts me off and I want to put it down. One great example of this is the book Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I picked this up because Jordan Harvey, who's one of my favorite booktubers, loves this series and she's always going on about it, so I picked it up and I just was really off-put by the character of Darrow. He's one of these masculine types who is like always angry, he's always yelling, except when his girlfriend, fiance, or wife, I don't remember what she is nearby, then he's calm, but the second she leaves, he's angry and yelling again. I just was really annoyed by him, and I'm sure he grows and changes over the course of the trilogy, but I wasn't willing to sit with this guy for the time being, and from what I've heard, he's like that for most, if not all, of the first book. Also, I can't go into detail about it because it is a spoiler, but this book features a cliche that I really hate in regards to character motivation, specifically regarding a character motivation for a male character. It happens towards the beginning of the book, so if you've read it, I feel like you know what I'm talking about, but basically I was so off-put that I just didn't want to spend any more time on it. And finally, category 4, moving on to greener pastures. This one specifically relates to me because a lot of the books I choose to read, I have a strong reason behind doing it, and usually that will compel me to finish a book even if I'm not enjoying it. For example, one of the things I want to do is read all the books that influenced Silent Hill, and one of those books is The Regulators by Stephen King, which I just uploaded my rant review of, and even though I hated it, I wanted to finish it so I could finish that reading challenge, and so I powered through it. However, sometimes my reading goals and reading challenges for myself allow me a little bit of wiggle room. For example, I really wanted to read some Dean Koontz because I really enjoy horror novels, and Dean Koontz is a pretty famous horror author. The first book of his I ended up picking up was a book called Odd Thomas. Now, I don't really think anything was wrong with Odd Thomas. It was okay. I felt like the setup was good, but it wasn't really grabbing my attention, and I kept waiting for it, and eventually I just put the book down because it just wasn't doing anything for me, and Dean Koontz has just a ton of other books that I could read if I wanted to read something from him. Another example of this is when I uploaded some of my early videos, I talked about the series The Spiderwick Chronicles, which was co-written by Holly Black. Now, of course, Holly Black is fairly famous on BookTube because of the Cruel Prince series right now, but also because of a couple other books she's written. And talking with people about The Spiderwick Chronicles and seeing Holly Black's name everywhere made me want to check out another one of her books. So I got the audiobook of The Coldest Girl in Cold Town from the library. Again, I just wasn't really grabbed by the plot. I mean, I was sort of enjoying it, but it just wasn't doing much for me. I really enjoyed the world building and the unique vampire mythos that Holly Black came up with, but I wasn't willing to power through the rest of the audiobook because the plot just wasn't doing much for me. Also, Holly Black, again, has a bunch of other books that I could pick up, so I could find something that I will hopefully enjoy more. So that's it. That is the 4 categories of DNFs that I do. I don't usually DNF books because, again, I usually have a goal in mind and a specific reason to read a given book, but sometimes it just doesn't work out and I decide it's just not worth it anymore. So that is all for me today. I want to give another quick thank you to Cat Talks for inviting me to get in on this collaboration. Again, check out everyone else who's done their own videos and check out Cat's channel for sure. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I will see you next time.